What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Experience More podcast. As always, pumped and excited to have each and every one of you guys here joining us this week. Really, if you're new, welcome. This is a podcast all about experiencing more of the great outdoors with those you love to experience it with. Zero BS, zero outtakes, any of that kind of stuff. Just riff it. No real script or anything of that nature, whether it is a solo cast or a guest or anything of that nature. So, three different styles podcasts. We have solo casts such as this one, or product or review podcast. We will sometimes join or have different individuals joining the podcast as a guest episode, which I do and hope to have a guest coming up here for you guys this week or this coming week, but it all depends on their schedule as a whole. So we're working on that. Got a couple others in the docket in that, but a lot of it's just coordinating with them to make it ultimately work. So if you are new here, appreciate you jumping in, being a part of the episode. And really, if you've not gone back, I highly recommend go back, check out from one all the way through the different episodes from, well over a year ago. So this episode, I'm really just going to give you guys my personal experience within the tactical games, the gear I use, the experience I had this last weekend. This podcast is a little bit late. It was supposed to go out on Monday, and I told you guys kind of via social media that it was going to be coming out here later this week. I got home super late Sunday, and it was just I was beat, suffering a lot from the allergies and everything kind of going around right now, and I've been battling that just with my voice. It was very hoarse after the weekend, so appreciate you keeping strong or staying up to beat with me here. So, but this, like I said, this podcast is not just one. It's not your traditional outdoors podcast where we're just going through telling stories, things of that nature. It's all facets of the outdoors, and it's really about things that just my day-to-day life, the thoughts in my mind, from personal development to the outdoors to physical fitness, health and wellness, and really all things that encompass the outdoors, whether that is hunting, fishing, hiking, camping, tactical games. Just falls into one of those things that I believe if you're physically fit, able, ready, all about the 2A and Second Amendment and that community, which is really why I've kind of found passion or a love in the competition of tactical games. So it's been a really good experience, or just that tactical shooting side of things. I know there's a couple other organizations out there that do things similar, and it's good stuff here and there. But I've gotten a good handful of questions via social media, in person, whether it's individuals at work, and I think it's just this one episode I want to be able to kind of dedicate, since that was my fourth competition, what I've learned through it. I'm no pro by any means, and just have a lot to learn, but I had no idea what it all entailed. I'm not a huge competitive shooter or anything of that nature. I don't have different, things underneath my belt. I feel like I'm pretty competent when it does come into shooting, but there is a lot that I have still yet to learn. And that's kind of, I guess, come along on the journey with me through that. And you will see that throughout different social platforms as well, from rifle builds, gear setups, and then just the event itself. So yeah, that's what this episode is going to be really dedicated for and towards. If you've ever looked at that, you have interest to it, and just kind of my experience and what it has been kind of through the last four, going from my first one where I got my butt handed to me to second one, qualifying, third one was with a partner, and then the fourth one here was the first time I ever competed in the elite division. So first time doing it, and still have a bugger shoulder as well. So kind of the ups and downs of all that, but here nor there. If you are new, definitely hit the like, subscribe if you're on the YouTube side, and it helps a lot because I don't go through and promote a bunch of different random BS on here you guys don't need, but leaving different reviews. It's really, this whole podcast is by word of mouth, and I do appreciate those of you guys who've gone through and left a review, and just help spread the message as a whole. And I will always kind of put my personal 2 cents twists in a lot of these different things. First thing I want to say, for anyone who has looked at tactical games or any of the shooting sports as a whole, get off your butt and just go do it. Go do it. It is a much more intimidating field from the outside looking in that, don't have all these different gadgets, gizmos, and all these things. And you see people just going and crushing, and I think a lot of people, I'm just going to dive into it. First perception to tactical games for me was thinking, right, it's a tactical competition. You're tying physical fitness and shooting right together. You're utilizing an AR style platform rifle. For the most majority of individuals, that's what they are using, 5.56 or 223. I know some people use 308 or AR-10s. I've seen a couple of those in there. It just seems like a hell of a lot of recoil and unnecessary expenditure of money when it comes to ammunition. But for some of those longer ranges, it might be something that's worthwhile. But from my perspective, getting into the tactical games, I have no prior background in law enforcement, military, or tactical shooting of any nature. I just like the aspect of being able to see a community of individuals of all walks of life, shapes and sizes, using a passion, right? Maybe they're hunters or they're shooters, they're law enforcement, military, or just advocates, 2A advocates. And, this is a group of individuals who have taken that field and tied physical fitness to it, right? It's not something like you're not necessarily going to be just a precision shooter while you're doing it, but you're having to be precise and really dial yourself in while under distress. And I love that. It goes right back to us going through and creating the November Knockdown Challenge and the outdoor games with First Form Outdoors and tying that archery shooting with the physical aspect of it. It's very, very similar in that sense. And I do foresee us going through and bringing back the outdoor games and the November Knockdown Challenge coming as well, which is an online qualifier, but I won't get into that side of things. I'm going to stay in my own lane here when it comes into the tactical games. But it has that vibe, right? It is taking something that people are passionate about, and maybe they don't have a reason to be fit, active, or get up off their couch, and it allows you to go out and create relationships in that community. But for a lot of people, and I can understand because it kind of was a little bit with me, didn't know what the community was going to be like. It can be intimidating from the outside looking in of, is this just going to be a bunch of individuals who, are high on the horse of shooting their rifles and best of the best, all these different things. I will be the first one to tell you that if you haven't been told already, going to a tactical games, if you show up and you really don't know what to expect, it's your first one, no one's with you. If you get there and something breaks, someone's going to have something to fix it. If you have questions, someone is going to be there to answer them. And everyone is super pumped and excited to see a new face there to help and be willing to help you go out there and compete at your best and have a great time and have a safe time. That is something that tactical games is very, very big on, is the safety side of it. And really they promote individuals, especially newer coming in, to slow down, focus, work, shooting and clearing procedures to make sure that you and everyone else around you are safe and can have a great competition weekend. And I've seen it and had it happen to friends where they show up and they go rip and roaring through it. They kind of lose themselves in the moment. And they break one of the rules that they ultimately have in place for safety, and they have either gotten DQ'd from that stage, right, which is one of the many stages, the 8 different stages that go on throughout the weekend, which is the event, right, the workout that you're doing, or being DQ'd. One of my good friends, first workout ever did, broke a 180, which is essentially a shooting 180 piece, which really no one was in harm's way from where he was at, but because he broke that, he was disqualified from the entire competition or from the entire match, and essentially became, a volunteer through the weekend. Now, those guys are very understanding. The last thing they want to do is have someone DQ'd from a match, but they have standards that they must hold, and that they, they're not picking favorites or anything of that nature. If you break one of those rules, it is for the safety of everyone, and they hold it at a very, very high regard to where there's no budging in that one way, shape, or form. So if you're going in, and I will recommend, if you're going to look at doing tactical games or you're doing a tactical event of any way, shape, or form, making sure that you go in and watch their videos on on YouTube for clearing procedures, new athletes, all those things coming in. It's great. Great knowledge, little pieces there. I definitely didn't do it my first time, and I should have, knowing, and I've gone back and looked at them and watched them since then. And it was just, I was new, I was green to all of it, right? And it was kind of a lot to take in. But I have to just hit on is like the community is phenomenal. My daughter and wife came out to them. They are all about kids being out there. There are kids out there. It's cool to watch, little 2-year-olds, babies, all this stuff, like whole families out there and just enjoying the range and the camaraderie community as a whole. So they've done a really, really good job with that. And I'm sure there's other competitions that are out there that I know also do that. I can't speak on them personally myself because I have not been to those yet. But the Tactical Games has done a phenomenal job when it comes to community and connecting those individuals together and really welcoming you in. So that's the big thing I have to say is don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask for help and direction, especially if you are new. And sometimes that's hard for us guys to go through and ask for that help. But for the sake of the entire event, the flow and everything, you're going to help yourself as well as everyone else going through and doing that. Probably the hardest thing when you first show up to a Tactical Games is learning the squad matrix and understanding how that ultimately all lays out. Again, I would watch their video kind of explaining squad matrix and that entire breakdown. And then when you are there, or my best tip would be once you get, because you will get an email on Friday, competitions Saturday, Sunday. You'll get an email Friday with all the workouts or the events. I would screenshot each one of those because each one of those workout like events that are there will have like a loadout, and the loadout is how many mags of rifle and how many rounds in that you need, and then how many rounds and mags of pistol or sidearm that you will need. So what has helped me is I just take a screenshot of each one of those event workouts and just kind of descriptions of that, because it allows me to look back at those photos, see those things, or write them down if you can, because what normally happens in those different scenarios where these ranges usually are, there's not very good cell service or Wi-Fi. So it's good to have something captured there in case you do not have cell service or internet of some sort, to be able to look those things up in the heat of it. And I'd highly recommend doing your first whatever squad you are in and whatever event you are in first. I would load those up the night before or be there early to have those loaded, because as soon as you go in, you do a safety briefing, and then really it's hammered down right after that. So you don't want to have to be rushing right into it as a brand new athlete. Coming in and having to go load mags, trying to figure it all out. If you have your mags already set up, you have all your gear already prepped the night before, once you figure out which heat you're in, what squad you're in, all of that the night before, going into it with at least an idea of what you have to do. I know the first one that I went to, I had no idea what I was doing, and thank God I had someone there who I knew and was a good friend with, and they helped point it out. Once you get an understanding of the matrix itself, it is totally understand, and it's like you are like Neo in the Matrix, coming to realization of everything that's all going on, and then it's just like a flow, and it works really, really well. So, but in the beginning, it's a little bit tricky. So once you go through, do that. Highly recommend checking those things out the night before and just kind of a game plan of what that ultimately looks like. You will have plenty of downtime in between majority of all of your different events going on. Usually you'll do one. Those events last maybe anywhere from 90 seconds to, if it's like just a gun one, or like a shooting event, to where if it's a fitness shooting event, usually a time cap of like 15 minutes. So in between there, you usually have like an hour or so in between the different events going on, if not more. So you are able to kind of get an idea of what's going on there. The biggest thing outside of that, so let's say you sign up, you get there, hang out, do that, be able to just kind of take it all in, understand your equipment, and just get in one. I would highly recommend, if you're going, bring a tent or a pop-up tent, bring a chair and bring a table. Like having a table to get your stuff up off the ground is very, very helpful. If you don't, I mean, it's just one thing that does help. And then one of those wagons that you can put kids in with the big wheels or whatnot, that you can get like Walmart or Amazon for like $100, worth its weight in gold as far as putting all your gear in it and just being able to wheel it to the next zone or stage where you are going. That a lot of people will use like their kids' old like big wheel strollers, like 3-wheeled strollers or running strollers, and they kit those out to where it'll carry their their ammunition, mags, belt, and they put like some rests on there so they can throw their firearm on it as well. So different things you can do like that. Once you get into it, it's just something to have. You don't need it any way, shape, or form. Really break down. And I think this is the other thing is the barrier to entry can be very high, or it seems like it's very high to get into it. So I just want to break that down really, really simple, bare bones of what you really need, right? You do not need any fancy, crazy AR-15. I, of course, I love my Stellar Arms rifle, and it's honestly a very budget-friendly, high-end rifle, to where, I mean, you can get into it for a couple grand. And really, I mean, shoot, you can get into some of them for, $1,500, and they're a stellar, no pun intended, rifle. And it really depends on what model you want with them. But I love my rifle, and it is something that shoots phenomenally. But I want it to be very, very clear. You literally can rock and roll with any AR-15 platform rifle and still have a good time. Have a rifle, you will need an optic on that. A 1 to 10 will suffice, especially for the first one. I personally like to have a little bit more magnification on that. I think a 3 to 15 is a great zone. Personally, I use the 4x24 Vortex. Again, that is something I did not start with. But you can literally use just a good 1 to 10, 3 to 15, have something that has a little bit of ability to allow you to zoom in, right, and check your hits. It's not whether or not you can just see where the target is, but when you are shooting, even if like some of the targets this last week were, 46 yards out, I want to be able to not necessarily have it right up on the paper, but I want to be able to zoom in so I can check my hits, confirm that, because I will promise you, you will never outwork poor shooting, right? So as far as how the score works or penalties play into it, just getting better and more proficient with your firearm and your optic setup is going to be huge. So you can do that. Little bonus you could throw on there is something you don't need, especially just getting started, but I highly recommend, would be putting a little 45 offset off to the side of your optic with just a red dot zeroed in at about 15 yards. So if you do just a run and gun style shooting event, there's usually like 1 or 2 of those inside of the different events that I've done. And it allows you to not have to really have, a good sight picture throughout your scope or your optic and find those close targets, but you can just do more of a run gun style, drop the dot on there and let her have it. That is something. So a rifle, optic, side, 45 offset. I run the DP Shooting Solutions 45 offset, which allows me to have really whatever degree or angle I want for that offset. And that is an awesome little piece there. The guys with Evolution Outdoors put that guy together. It's one of their new ventures and everything with DP Shooting Solutions. That is, a cool little thing to be able to have. You do not need to have a suppressor or anything of that nature. If you do have a brake on it, they ask that you have something that has like a brake shield or a forward push on that, so you're not blasting people to your left and right when you're on the firing line. So they want you to have a guard on that, or a brake shield on that setup. So that's kind of your rifle, right? And then you'll want to have at least 5 mags. 5 mags on the rifle side of things. Most of the things you shoot, you're going to have maybe 4, up to 4, 3 to 4, and then you might have 1 or 2 events that have 5 mags utilized. So minimum, I'd say 5. Having that. And then from there, your sidearm, you will want a belt. You can just get a regular belt with a holster on your leg for your sidearm. Your sidearm can literally be anything. It can be, one of the best shots I saw out there in one of the first events I ever did was this gal shooting a Glock, and she was drilling tacks at the 25-yard target with iron sights on a Glock. You can use red dots, you can do open sights, whatever you want when it comes to your sidearm. You just be proficient in it, and everyone's a little bit different in that side of things. So definitely having that. Most of your targets in that side, the furthest I've seen is like 6 yards, which is actually this last weekend. And that was in the elite division. I guess the shooting's all the same across the board. It's just a fitness piece that changes in the different divisions. But 36 yards was the furthest. And again, that just kind of comes down to what style you want to be able to shoot. So sidearm, have a holster for that sidearm, a belt for that, and again, 5 mags. 9mm, like you can do 9mm, 45, whatever you want to do there. Recommend 9mm just for the fact of ammo cost and things of that nature. And I will say some of the like events I've been at have like the Texas Star or the spinning one. I can't remember what it's called, but having a little bit heavier of a push on your projectile is big to be able to spin that wheel around and make it go full circle. That's just a benefiting factor there. If you have a round that's really smaller than that, you're not going to be able to do too much with that. So 9mm is majority of what people use, but so you'll need your sidearm, your belt, your holster, and then you will want to have the 5 mags for that as well. Going back to the rifle, you also need to make sure you have a rifle flag, right? Or a chamber flag for that. That is something that they're, again, a safety piece. They run all dry and clear ranges. So anytime anything is walking around, your sidearm is always holstered. It is never out. It is never loaded. No mags. Nothing is ever in any of the firearms. And then if you're walking around as well, you always, if you are not on the firing line, you have to have that chamber flag in. That is something they are very, very serious about. You do not take that chamber flag out until one of the ROs, the range officers, tell you or give you the command that you are able to take your chamber flag out, and then check your sight picture, everything downrange, get ready for the competition. So having that. So really, pistol, rifle, that's set up. You can have any vest you want to have. It is 15 pounds. So they weigh that when you show up. When you check in, they check your rifle, they check your pistol, make sure all the safety pieces are on those, all the rifle, chamber flag, everything's good there. You can run whatever optics, any of that kind of stuff that you're running. And then they check the weight of your vest. For men, it is 15 pounds. For women, I believe it was 12. So you just want to make sure that you have the prescribed weight in there. And I think it was Jacked Rabbit is the plates that I have in mind. It's like little sand pouches and everything in there. Or I can't remember if it's sand or lead or whatnot, but they're just little stripes and it molds better to kind of the body. But you can use whatever plates you ultimately want, but it's got to be at least 15 pounds. I think my vest is about 16 pounds and everything. So 15 pounds of plate and then add a pound or so for the vest itself. But you have that vest, and then you will need, for hearing protection, have something. You can run muffs, you can run plugs. I literally just use little foamies, like little foam plugs. I have the like the headphones and all that different stuff, the hearing ones, but honestly, like I don't like things being on my head, so I just run the little orange cheap plugs and throw those guys in. So those work perfectly fine for me. And then you need eye protection as well. So those are the kind of the things that just making sure you have, and I'm sure you ultimately would if you're showing up the range, just kind of the safety precautions and that. Outside of that, your attire is totally up to you. You really don't need anything outside of what I just said. If you showed up with the rifle set up, the pistol set up, your vest, like you're ready to rock, you're good to go. Ammo's totally up to you on what you want to run. You can run 55 grain, super simple or cheap rounds. I would recommend that for the beginning if you're starting out. And then as you get more precise, dialed in, and you're looking at ranges and distances, you're going to want, like, you will see a drastic change from 55, even just going up to like 68 grains as far as wind drift on the longer shots. The longest shot I have ever taken or had to take is 650 yards. And that is just, again, knowing the optics. Now, I will tell you straight off the bat, I hit, out of all 40 rounds I sent down range at 650 yards, I hit the target once. I had never shot my gun out to that range prior. And it was just, I did not know my optics setup and holdovers and everything at that range. Finally got it right at the end, was able to hit one. But that's, again, it's just as it is, and you roll with the punches and make it ultimately happen. That is the furthest one I've been at. Another one was 360. Another, like, that was the longest one. Another one was 450. And then the other one was, I think, 510 was, I think, the farthest one out in Utah. Can't remember exactly what was out there. It was multiple ranges of like 100 to 200, 3, and then 5, I think. But that is kind of the ranges. You'll at least see one long range shot come up in the competition weekend. And it's just dependent on the range and what they have for capabilities. And not one single competition or event is the same. So it is always constantly varied in that sense, not just in the physical standpoint, but also in the shooting side of it. So it's good to know what your rifle and your setup is capable of and how to do those things. But again, I went into it the first time I ever did it, knowing that furthest I've shot my rifle was out to 300 yards, and that was it. So it's once you get out there, you kind of get a niche for it, see if this is something you really want to do, and then you can go further into it. But outside of those things that I kind of talked about gear wise, you don't need anything crazy or special. You can do a very budget friendly gun, a very budget friendly optic. You can run whatever you're running for your sidearm. Your belt could be something that you get off of Amazon, have a few mag pouches on that belt. I personally run 2 mag pouches for rifle on my belt, 2 mag pouches for pistol. And then if I'm needing to carry the other ones, I put them in the pockets inside of my pants. And I will say, and I have to give a huge shout out to the Born Primitive tactical pants that they have. It was the thinner material ones this last weekend. We had one event where I literally thought I'm like, there's no way I'm not going to rip these things. Like, it was kind of like a gravel ground, and the workout was 10 rounds. This was just a fitness one, but it was an EMOM, essentially 10 rounds, 10 minutes, where you had to 3, 2, 1, go, and you would sprint down, you would hurdle over one rig, and then you slid underneath another one, get up, run down around a barrel, come back, slide under, jump over, and get back to the start line. Your time would stop. And then when a minute hit, you would do it again, and they'd start your time again, accumulate your total time throughout the whole event itself. 10 minutes total. Most of those sprints took anywhere from like 28 seconds to 30 seconds. So you had about 30 seconds to rest and then get recouped for the next sprint take off. But me being 200 and still able to go through, make it ultimately happen. But sliding underneath that bar was me just going feet first, coming down to the backside, sliding under this thing. And it's more like a gravel, dirt. It's an open range. So I'm like, I'm going to rip straight through these things. Those pants, if I went through, dust them off, it looks like nothing happened to them. Like absolutely nothing. And I was very, very impressed, very surprised with that. I love the pants. I'm wearing them right now. And it's just one of those things where it's like, hey, proof's in the pudding in it. And they definitely done some work and testing and trying these things out. They don't just look good. They don't just feel good. Like, they perform really, really well. And I love the fact, of course, like being just the tactical setup. They have the bigger pockets and everything on the sides, kind of like the cargo pockets and that, but they're not like big, bulky or anything like that. But they breathe really, really well. They have vents on the side, and they hold up really well. So I'll put my extra mags in those pockets, or pocket in my vest, and be able to hit those different events when I need to go through and ultimately carry more mags or have the mags retained on me. So that's like, if there's a piece of gear or a couple pieces of gear I'd speak highly on, it's definitely those pants. And then I would just look at, shoe wise, like for the first couple events, I ran just like the 511, the tactical boot, and then Born Primitive trainers. Done that. But one shoe that I've ultimately really come to like a lot, because they are light, they are functional, and they just move super, super well. I wore them once I put them on this last weekend. They were just kind of the ones that stayed on my feet the entire time. Was the Speed Goats. I have the Speed Goat 5s from Hoka. They're a great shoe. It's one that I ran my Ultra Spartan or Ultra Beast Spartan race in. I never blistered or anything with them. Like, they're just a great shoe overall. They got a good tread on the bottom. And that's definitely a shoe I would highly recommend for anyone going in and looking at doing it for an all-around good all-terrain purpose shoe, even outside of the tactical games. Like, I love it. So that's a shoe I can recommend on that. I definitely highly recommend hollow socks. I wore wool socks all weekend long, or the hollow socks have the alpaca fibers woven within them, and they're very, very good. They're lightweight sock. that just helps with moisture control and wicking the moisture and just overall heat control. Like my feet never, like I don't remember them sweating or anything of any nature, but I was always super comfortable, never had any blistering or anything of that nature happen, especially for some of the longer workouts, even the one we did up in Iowa last year, and then also competing out in Utah where I believe it was like 108 degrees one of the days. Dusty, I still wore those hollow alpaca socks, and dude, my feet were money the whole time. And plus they don't smell, which is freaking sweet. Oh, that's just kind of a piece of gear that I don't think would get talked about a lot in that side of it. But if your feet are good and your body's good, I think you're capable of really doing anything and everything throughout it. So gear wise, I mean, that's really what wraps up most of the event. You know, like I said, if you can bring a tent to get out of the rain or the heat, highly recommend having a tent because you're of course just out at a range and you can pop that thing up wherever you want it to be. If you got just like a camp chair, throw that bad boy up. Like, it just makes the experience that much more enjoyable. Or if you know someone who's going to be out there or a friend or something of that nature, like when we went to Utah, had some buddies within the SIG team and everything. And one of the guys I was competing with out there was a part of the SIG team. So they had a tent and everything set up. So we just hung out there, which is really cool. But as you do more of the events too, like you're going to get to know other people, and you know, just be a friend, connect with people, have conversations, and you'll be surprised at how welcoming the entire community is. Because I know I was, right? From the first event I did up in, and I'll give you kind of a rundown. First event was Iowa last year, which is about 4.5 hours from St. Louis, where we're based out of here. That event, had no idea what I was getting myself into, and still had a great time. It did kick my butt. It opened up my eyes. That was kind of the first point. Like, I will not outshoot bad, or I will not out fitness bad shooting. I placed decent in my first tactical division up there. And I would recommend, like, you can either do tactical or intermediate. Like, there's no shame. Like, start where you fully feel comfortable in, assess where you are at, allow yourself to learn through the process, give it everything you got, and then you can, of course, move up and elevate from there. But did that one, got my butt kicked, and still had a great time. Mixture of fitness. There was some running in there. There was, of course, shooting for the shots out there. It was 450 yards. And even if you see things like rope climbs, right? Like, there is always a penalty buyout. So like, if you couldn't do a rope climb at that event, you had to do 3 bar over burpees for that rope climb, right? So if you had to do one, instead of doing the rope climb, you just do 3 bar over burpees, and then you go on your way, make it ultimately happen. So Iowa was a great one, great event, great range. Following that, went up to the SIG Academy up in New Hampshire, did the one up there. That one, again, was an awesome range. That one has an entire obstacle course, which was super, super cool. Great range. Hoping to be able to make it back there again this year. But that one also is the one that had the 650-yard range, or the shots on it. So part of me wants to go back just because I need a little bit of a redemption in that, just feeling more confident with my shooting abilities and what my training has ultimately led to over the last year here. So need a little bit of redemption. But that's one actually that is the event that I went through and qualified for nationals. So all of those are regional events across the nation, and they also hold some over in Europe. And then they also have skirmishes, little pop-up events that ultimately happen here as more of training events for a regional event. But that one was a fun one. I earned a ticket to nationals at that one. Top 5 individuals in all categories ultimately make their way that way. And then if someone doesn't, like, let's say, like that event, I took 6, but one of the individuals who placed at that event had already punched their ticket to nationals at one of the other regional events. So then it essentially waterfalled down to me. So even though I was just outside of the top 5, finishing in 6th place, it did allow me to get a ticket to go to nationals and compete out there. After that event, a couple weeks, if you guys have watched my YouTube, you saw me do the bow build on the RX-10 that I had, and my shoulder popped. That was, probably 7, 8 months ago. It was not too long after that event that happened. And it was at that event that I actually met one of my good buddies, Sonny Ruben, who asked me to compete out in Utah with him because he had not qualified for nationals yet. And he did not know I had qualified yet either. But he was like, dude, if you don't want to go, once he found out I qualified, he's like, you don't have to go do Utah if you don't want to. Like, you don't have to do that. But it was just a good training and reason to go get out and compete and train. But right mid between Utah and New Hampshire, I had done that bow build and popped something in my shoulder. Not still to this day sure what it was, but it is still giving me trouble, which is unfortunate. I thought it would be healed up by now. I've been doing a lot of different rehab and work. It's better than it was. But I went and competed at that one, and we did end up going through and qualifying him. If you qualify as a team for nationals, you will qualify as individuals going there. So, because it's all individual competitions that go down at nationals. So we did qualify as a team individually, being able to qualify for nationals, which was super cool. He was able to go. I personally ended up bowing out of that competition, or of the nationals itself, just because my shoulder was not getting better. And I knew that one of two things would happen. One, I would go into it, I would give it every single thing that I had, which I'd know I'd do regardless, and probably end up injuring my shoulder more and just get very, very frustrated and upset with myself. And the other side of that would be I would get there, I would try to give it everything I got, and I just would not be able to go as hard as I wanted to because of the injury, and I would not have the greatest outcome possible. So myself, listening to my body, just looking at what it was going to take, cost, all that stuff going down there to do that, I just decided to step back from doing nationals last year. And really from then just looked at it as like, I'm going to do everything I can to rehab this, get this better. And then the goal was, of course, to, in 2026 here, compete in the elite division, because just after doing a handful of the events, I know that I am personally capable of the physical side of things, and the shooting side is just something that I know I need to work on. So me, just being me, I'm like, well, I want to train with the best in the room, right? I want to put myself in that kind of competition. I want to put myself up against those kind of people and really just push to excel. And the goal was to, of course, compete in the elite division and then qualify for nationals in the elite division. Well, this last weekend, I signed up for the Missouri one. We got those guys out here, did that competition, and that was last weekend. And it was the first elite division. I'm very, very happy where I finished. Still definitely not satisfied in it, but I went into that weekend still with a bum shoulder. Rope climbs are really kind of non-existent for me. It still aggravates it quite a bit. And then, of course, anything pressing overhead, anything that really puts a lot of pressure on that shoulder or that shoulder capsule, just kind of tweaks it. There's not a very good sound stability to it. I definitely need to go in, get an MRI, figure out exactly what's going on with it. So I just know better, like, hey, is this something that I can rehab and it's just going to take time and I need to be smart with it? Or is it something I need to go through and have surgery done on? So right now I'm just kind of in this gray zone where I really don't know where it's at. But I went into that weekend knowing that I wasn't 100%, but I was going to give it everything I got to see what it would take, but still being smart. Knew one of the events was going to probably have rope climbs in it because I'd seen them setting stuff up. And with that, I was like, all right, I will try a rope climb and see how it feels. And if I can't go through and do it, I will do the penalty work within that. And of course, that's what I did. I went through, I just listened to my body, it was the workout that was actually at nationals last year called OOF. It incorporated on the elite division a very, very heavy sandbag, 225 pounds, that was soaking wet throughout the night from rain we had Friday night. And I've lifted and trained with 300-pound sandbags before, and I can confidently say that bag was 250 pushing 275 just with it being wet. So it was sandbags over a bar and then 3 rope climbs for the elite guys. And I did 1, 2, and then my shoulder was like, no, don't do it. Don't hurt it. It was getting overly fatigued and I could feel it just not being happy. So of course, burpees over the bar was my penalty for that. For not doing a rope climb was 5 burpees over bar, which is the bar on the rig, which is about chest height. And it's a time suck. You just can't do them quick. So went through, did that one. I actually ended up finishing that one much better than I thought I did when it comes down to scoring, just because I was able to move the sandbag, where a lot of people did struggle with that piece. So finished pretty good in there. Won one of the other events in there, a sandbag drag one that, yeah, was just able to go through, got that one. And then the courses that, or all the events went really, really good, except the two that I did the worst on would have been the speed shooting courses where it was just involving shooting a gun or shooting a pistol. And that's something that I need to work on overall. Throughout the entire weekend, finished 6th. I feel like I see a commonality here or a flow of where I kind of fall and place in, but finished 6th within the elite division, which was awesome. Outside of the fact that being 6th, I was about 50-ish points outside of being in 5th, which would have qualified me for nationals. Unfortunately, all the guys who did finish in the top 5, that was their first time qualifying. So, of course, I did not qualify for nationals to go down there, which is totally fine. Just gives me more opportunity to go out and try and make it happen here again throughout the season. So, and that was this last one in Missouri out at the Intrepid Defense range. And if you're in Missouri, I highly recommend checking those guys out. They're new. They're like 8 months old as far as the range goes. Beautiful range. They have the ability to shoot out to 600, 700, 800 yards. Furthest one we did out there was 365. 365? Yeah, 360. I believe it was 365. But it was still a phenomenal time with some great people. And it was really, really cool personally just to be able to put myself in that position. Going into it, I really wasn't sure what to expect. I know what I am capable of when it comes into my own fitness and shooting abilities, and have really been trying to work on getting better when it comes to shooting and knowing my firearm systems, sidearm systems, my optics, and just understanding those different facets. And I think that's one of the cooler things that I can tell you guys and just give you more confidence in doing this and trying it is, it's one thing to be proficient with your firearm or go out and, sit on a bench and take a shot, but to be confident in running your firearm or your sidearm while under distress or fatigued and just keeping your composure to be able to go through the systems of loading, unloading, getting on target, finding target, and being proficient in that. I think it rolls into real life scenarios and really like when shit hits the fan, are you ready? And that's something that I really, really love because when I first did it, I didn't have as much confidence in how I was performing, how I was shooting, how I was handling my firearms. But going through and doing the tactical games has given me so much more confidence in my ability to shoot and be very precise while under distress, right? And I think that, just going into the hunting scenario, if you're hiking and hauling your ass up the mountain, you're trying to go through, you're huffing and puffing wherever you're at. Now you got to take a shot and know like, okay, I got to range this target, see where it's at, understand my distance, understand what's in between me and it, and then other factors that are going in. Is it windy? What's the terrain like? Can I make this shot happen? And then being able to dial it out, right? Or know a holdover of where you are at within your optic to be able to make a good shot. I think it is something that is very, very real world, like making sure that you are good to go. So it's made me more confident in that. If shit hit the fan and the world just started going to shit in a handbag, like I feel a lot more confident with my ability to perform and ultimately take on different challenges that ultimately come forward. So doing that, I think it's, it just gives you a better understanding of your tools and how to use them. So it's definitely done that. Definitely, I know Tina, my wife, has even mentioned like her going through and trying it. And I'd love for her to go through and try it. And even the training and being proficient in that, I think it's great. Get the women involved, the kids involved, being able to have them out there. Aurora was even like, I'm like, hey, you going to do this? Like, you want to do it? It's like, yeah. It's like, you going to shoot the guns? Yeah. Bang, bang, like loud. Like she was just pumped up and excited, and be able to have her out there and share the experience with it too. Not only just tying the physical fitness piece to it, but the ability to shoot and have that confidence and be able to get her and my wife into an ecosystem like that is just a very, very cool thing. Yeah, it's definitely something I think anyone and everyone can benefit from. I think it's something everyone should at least try, right? If you love shooting your gun, and I would just say, hey, if you love going out, shooting an AR-15, shooting your pistol, if you got the gear, you got the setup, all this stuff, like I would recommend, like, get your ass off the couch, go in and sign up for an intermediate one, go try it, right? Because you might be able to shoot on a bench right now. You might be able to do X, Y, and Z, but go out, get a little bit of a sweat going, break a sweat, get your heart rate up, start breathing heavy. And now let's go through and see how good of a shot you are while under that distress. It's a cool thing. And it's something I would encourage anyone and everyone to go in and at least venture to try once, so you know, right? And understand what that is ultimately like, because I think it can be very, very beneficial. And who knows, like for me, coming from the background of like CrossFit and competitions and everything like that, like I really haven't competed outside of last year. Last year was the first year that I've really, outside of running like some marathons, half Ironman, that kind of stuff, like doing the first competition in Iowa, I did the first couple events and I was like, this can be addicting, just because there is that competitive piece in me. And I was like, it was scratching an itch that I know I've had for a long time. After being out of the CrossFit scene or the coaching side of things there and having the gym or going to like CrossFit competitions, like it definitely scratched that competitive side of me. And I was like, okay, this is something like it's not just fitness, right? But I'm able to get better in many different areas of my life, but still feed into that competition side of things. So it's just fun. And it's a fun, great community. And like I said, that handful of guys and everything out there the other weekend is like, man, there's a hell of a lot worse things we could be doing right now. We're getting some fitness in, we're shooting some guns, we're hanging out with some badass individuals across the country. So it's just really, really cool to be able to tie in that whole community. So that's really all I got for you guys. If you have questions, feel free, drop them down in the comments down below. If you're on YouTube, drop them down in below there. If you have questions, you can hit me up on my social platforms over at Jake Arvold on Instagram, on YouTube, of course, when I post this up on there. And then can't really leave comments on podcasts, but you definitely, you ever have questions across the board, don't ever hesitate to reach out. You can always go through, email me, overdoseoutdoors@gmail.com. If you have different questions, thoughts, things of that nature, happy to go through and give you any 2 cents that I ultimately have, be able to get you out there as a whole. So that's really all I got for you guys this week. If you got a chance, you feel like you got a little bit of itch, you're wondering, you're thinking about it, I would just say, hey, instead of just trying to tiptoe into it or kind of try and figure out some things, just jump head on first. Get on in there, go have some fun, shoot some guns, get some fitness on. So that's this week episode. If you guys been here before, like, subscribe, go through, leave a review. Appreciate each and every one of you guys who have done it and ultimately help share the show. So if you have someone who, is looking at the tactical games, or this could be something towards them, give them a little bit of insight, definitely help spread the word, go through, share the show and everything with them as well. So appreciate you guys. We will see you next week. Love y'all. Till next time.